In today's video, we have some NHL offseason trade rumors on teams like the Montreal Canadiens, the Edmonton Oilers, and the Arizona Coyotes. Plus, we have some big news on Jonathan Toews and Habs captain Gabriel Landeskog. We have news from the NHL waiver wire and some more news from around the league, including some executives and coaches that might be feeling the hot seat. We'll discuss that more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a ton of news to get into here today, some trade rumors as well. So let's dive right in and get started. Lots to cover here. First up, a quick note from the NHL waiver wire. We had Mark Friedman from the Penguins on waivers yesterday. He didn't clear, so he can be reassigned. And the Vancouver Canucks today have defenseman Noah Juleson on waivers for the purpose of being reassigned to the Abbotsford team in the American Hockey League. So I would imagine this time of year, you're not going to see a waiver claim. Obviously, playoff rosters are set already after the trade deadline and all that. So it's and most teams are going to be either playing game 81 or 82 here now. So not like we're going to see a waiver claim. Very unlikely. Some big playoff news last night. The New York Islanders secured the final playoff spot across the league for taking wildcard 2. At least it looks that way. They could move up to wildcard 1. It is possible. Obviously, the standings right now, they're technically in wildcard 1, but the Panthers still have a chance to move back ahead of them. So they clinched their spot by beating the Montreal Canadiens last night. And the Pittsburgh Penguins now are officially out. So this, for the first time in many, many years, we're not going to have any Penguins, no Capitals, so no Sid, no Ovi. It's like the beginning of a new era here in the NHL. So the Islanders are in. The Panthers, like I said, are still battling with them to determine which wildcard spots they're each going to get. We also have a game tonight involving other teams. Like most teams are in action tonight, playing their final game of the season. Like within the Metro Division, for example, we don't know if Carolina or New Jersey will win the division. One of them will be first, the other will be second. The Rangers will be third. We do know that. In the Atlantic, we know that the Leafs and Lightning will play. We know the Bruins are first. We just don't know which wildcard team they're going to play. So after tonight, we'll have a really good idea, pretty much all the matchups for the Stanley Cup playoffs, and then I'll start putting out my playoff preview type videos here very shortly after, likely in the next day or so. So that will all be settled likely after tonight. There was a press conference here in Arizona regarding the, the vote, you could say, that's coming up for the Arizona Arena project. Obviously, it's all being put to referendum to the public. Lots of NHL-related people down there speaking, including Commissioner Gary Bettman, former NHLer, longtime Coyotes player, and of course, he was employed by the organization as well. Shane Doan, a big supporter, and obviously Coyotes executive as well, Xavier Gutierrez as well, and other members of the Tempe Council who are in favor of this project. So they had a chance to hold a conference and speak to why they're supporting it and why they believe that everything with the project should go ahead, and the vote will be coming up here in a few weeks' time. We also had news today from Elliotte Friedman on the Jeff Barrett show saying that it seems possible at this point that Vegas Golden Knights captain Mark Stone could play in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. I've seen other outlets say that it's not a given and it's we should be a little cautious of that. So we'll have to wait and see. But either way, like I said before, with Stone being out for the big chunk of the season and they use his LTIR, pool that they're able to exceed with the rules the way they are, you're going to get a lot of people kind of, not so happy with the fact he can play in Game 1 if that's indeed the case. But those are the rules. We've seen other teams manipulated before. Not surprised to see it happening again. Now, with the Penguins missing out on the playoffs, it's quite possible we're going to see somebody or multiple people pay the price for that in the organization. But how are things going to go? I don't think it's going to be head coach Mike Sullivan. Mike Sullivan had a long-term contract extension just last year. I think more likely, if anything, you're going to see potential front office change. I don't know that it's a given, but it's possible that both Brian Burke and Ron Hextall are replaced. At the very least, Ron Hextall likely replaced. I don't know how new ownership there feels about them as with the jobs they've done. Obviously, they were hired and placed by Muriel and the old regime, of course, is now owned by Fenway Sports Group. The team has been sold since they were hired, so I don't know what their thoughts on everything is, but obviously they want to see the team getting in the playoffs. Last offseason, they committed a lot of money to bring back Malkin, Letang. Of course, Crosby's still on their contract, and they're trying to run it back and, get into the playoffs and go and see if they can get any more championships with this group of guys. And things backfired horribly this year, but I don't think we can fault the top stars. I think Crosby, Letang, and Malkin all had good years. First time in a long time that Crosby and Malkin didn't miss any extended time. They were both healthy all season, which was a rarity. It's a supporting cast that definitely needs a change. They didn't get the goaltending they needed. Their blue line is a mess, and the other parts of the forward group, the supporting guys, just not great. I think the Jeff Carter extension is not looking good. The Granlund acquisition of the deadline, not looking good. The Jeff Petrie acquisition from Mike Matheson in the summer, not looking good. They come back with Jerry and Smith and goal, not make a change there, not looking good. So I think overall there's been a lot of missteps from management's perspective, and it is quite possible, according to NHL insiders, they would not be shocked to see ownership come in and install their own people now that things have not worked with them for a couple of seasons. So we'll see if Burke and Hextall are on the hot seat, and if we might see changes with the Penguins organization. Now, as I put out a video on this next topic earlier, so I'm not going to go into great detail on it. If you want full details of my full analysis, certainly check out the video posted earlier today. But the Blackhawks did confirm that Jonathan Toews is playing his last game in the Blackhawks organization tonight. He will not be back with the team next year. They already just had discussions with him and advised him that they would not be offering a new contract to re-sign him for next season or beyond. So unfortunately for Toews, if he did want to come back, the option isn't there. I'm not convinced he was going to go back anyway, based on his own comments he's made periodically throughout the year. It sounds like he was gearing himself up to either retire or move on. We don't know what the future holds for him, but we do know now, at least for sure, that if he does play next year or beyond, it's not going to be in Chicago. His final game as captain of the Blackhawks organization will be this evening, and obviously going to be, another piece of that long, successful era that's moving on. Essentially, they wanted, when Kane and Toews came into the organization, they had basically a clean slate, options for new guys to come in and kind of take over the reins of being leaders, and they want the next wave of Blackhawk players to have that same opportunity. So we'll see. But obviously, if you want a further explanation or further details on Toews' career and my other thoughts, you can check out the video posted on the channel earlier today. Big news on Colorado tonight as well. Not good news, but the Avalanche have confirmed that Captain Gabe Landeskog is not going to be available for the entirety of the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's been a long time since we've had any real update. Jared Bednar from time to time has said yes, he's skating a little bit on his own, but we don't know anything. And now it's things are not improving enough. Landeskog himself confirmed tonight that he won't be able to play in the playoffs, and this has been an ongoing issue for some time. It actually all started for him back in the bubble season, back when they were playing in Edmonton during the bubble playoffs, when he was actually cut by a skate blade. So that's when it started. And obviously he had a surgery last season, came back for the playoffs, they won the Stanley Cup, but obviously that did not completely resolve everything. And this year he's been out for the entire year. He also did say that he doesn't know. He thinks it's possible or likely that he may need another surgery. And as far as returning down the road, it's uncertain. It's a question mark. So could Gabriel Landeskog's career be over at the age of 30? I hope it isn't. That'd be really unfortunate. But at this point, it's possible. We can't say with any kind of certainty that it is or it isn't, which is certainly not a great spot for him. So I certainly feel for him. But, if indeed his career is over, at least he got to win the Stanley Cup. At least he got his contract extension before things got too bad. So obviously financially he's well secured. And he got his cup, and if that's how he goes out, at least that's a decent way to go. But hopefully he can get back to playing. But after missing a full season, depending on next season, if next season starts and he's not able to go, then that's going to be a sign, just like we were seeing like in Carey Price and others. If you miss 2 years, it's you're not coming back. It just doesn't happen. So we'll have to see, but it's certainly not good news on him. Montreal, good story out of Montreal tonight. Montreal Canadiens scratched Mike Hoffman for tonight's game, and they brought up Lucas COndotta, who's a 24-year-old left winger, undrafted guy. Been playing in the minors with Laval Rocket. It's his second season with the organization. Put up 30 points in 71 games. Brought him up to play in the final NHL game of the season for the Habs tonight, and he scored on his first shift. So obviously, like good stories. Well, he's again a guy who was not drafted. a little bit older, making his NHL debut. Had to work hard and persevere to get everything he's got, and he makes the most of it, scoring in his first game, in his first shift, first shot for the Habs tonight. So certainly a great story to see as well. And the Maple Leafs again continued to go down the route of having goalies signed to an ATO for making sure that they have 2 goaltenders on the bench tonight, of course, with Samsonov getting rested up because of a minor ailment and Murray having a concussion. Joseph Wall gets the start this evening. Tonight's ATO goaltender, though, does have a local connection for myself, Samuel Richard, who is actually the local goalie for the University of New Brunswick men's hockey team, who actually just won again because they've done it numerous times under their current head coach, but this became national champs again for the first time since 2019. So this guy's really good. He played some junior hockey in the Q for Ruin Naranda for, I think, parts of 3 seasons, and this is his first year in U Sports, and had a real solid year with UNB, and now tonight he gets to be the backup goalie for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I know some are enjoying the rotation of different guys getting a chance. Some are annoyed by it, thinking that it's a privilege to play the NHL, and these guys shouldn't really, be getting chances in the cap and screwing everything up. It doesn't matter. I mean, what you think, there's lots of different ways around it. Is there maybe a better solution? Maybe there is, but at the end of the day, based on the rule book, they're not doing anything wrong, and these guys are, relishing their opportunities, even if it's just a one-day glory of being on NHL ice and being in part of an NHL game and living out their dreams. We'll see if he gets actually into the game or not. So far, they've only done it one time, but good on him and good on the other guys just for having a chance to be, like a kid and get into your game and live out your dream. So we'll see where things go, but there could be changes in that regard, maybe negotiated down the road, but that's a CBA issue, so it's not going to be any kind of quick fix that we see between the NHL and Players Association. Word from TSN Insider Trading tonight, Darren Dreger is saying that Mike Babcock might be looking to get back into coaching, and actually, except it's not Mike Babcock, it's there was some speculation there was Mike Babcock, the former Maple Leaf and Red Wings and coach, Hockey Canada coach, but no, it's actually his son, Mike Babcock Jr., who coached with his dad in the University of Saskatchewan, was seen on the ice with the Ottawa Senators and head coach DJ Smith. Apparently, he's been interning with DJ Smith. Of course, DJ Smith coached under Mike Babcock with the Toronto Maple Leafs before he was head coach of the Ottawa Senators. So certainly knows the family, would know him well, and is give him a chance to kind of come and learn. And Dreger says that Mike Babcock Jr. has aspirations to also be an NHL coach like his dad, and is trying to gather up as much experience as he can to garner that opportunity. I don't know what else he has on his resume. I do know he coached, obviously, as an assistant at the university level at the University of Saskatchewan with his dad. Besides that, I'm not sure what else he has there, what qualifications he may have to someday get an opportunity. But if you hear Mike Babcock's name, it's actually his son right now, looking to get into things possibly in the NHL down the road. And in the trade section of the video, we have 3 teams we want to talk about here today. I said Montreal, Edmonton, and Arizona, and we'll start with them. RFA goaltender, pending RFA goalie Connor Ingram is a name to watch as we get to the beginning parts of the offseason before the draft. He is a guy who's going to need to be qualified. He's actually a guy that may not stick around in Arizona, according to NHL insiders here in Insider Trading on TSN tonight. This is that they have a tough decision to make, and he might be a guy that either gets moved or possibly not qualified. Now, he was picked up on waivers by the Coyotes early this season. He appeared in 27 games. His save percentage was decent. He was just shy of 910. Goals against average was over 3, but you got to remember, not a strong team in front of him. Obviously, one of the weaker teams in the NHL. So certainly, not great from that standpoint. So I don't know if we can put that all on him. He does have a pretty decent track record, in my opinion. He could be a potential diamond in the rough type of player that we'll see, but it doesn't look like they're seeing him as part of their future plans, and could be on a move one way or another. Either becomes a UFA or gets traded and re-signed before the draft. That's a possibility, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Now, Frank Saravalli is talking with the Edmonton Oilers, saying as much as it might be crazy to think about right now, when we get to the offseason and the big part of the offseason business for the Oilers, he thinks that they would consider trading defenseman Evan Bouchard. Now, Bouchard has become a pretty important part of the blue line, especially on offense, and especially now that Tyson Barrie was traded for Matthias Ekholm, his role in the offensive opportunities and power play has increased substantially. So the idea of trading him Seems a little bit ridiculous, I know, but he does need a new contract. And the Oilers, like many teams, are incredibly tight up against the cap. They have a lot of money invested in their top guys, and that might prove to be, challenging to get a deal done with him and do everything else that they need to do. So Seravalli says he's convinced that they would at least entertain the idea. Doesn't say he's going to be shocked or that they want to trade him. A lot of it's going to depend on contract negotiations, but given the fact that he's had a good couple of years to develop well, he's going to be looking for a substantial raise, and that might just be, an issue for the Oilers. Not that they wouldn't want to say he's worth the money, just that they might have a hard time squeezing him in under the cap, and it might become an issue where they might have to consider it if his, contract negotiations and his demands don't come down and kind of meet where they can fit it in. So at the end of the day, it might be a name to watch in the offseason. I think it's less likely to happen. I think the Oilers will do everything they can to keep Bouchard. I don't see, something that they really want to do, but I understand his rationale when it comes to the cap, and it might be something that they might be maybe more forced into than wanting to. He's a right shot, offensively gifted defenseman who's young, who they drafted and developed. I don't see a case where they really want to move him, but if negotiations go awry, anything is possible, and it could be a name to watch in the summer. And as I mentioned before, we have multiple reports from multiple insiders that have said that the Montreal Canadiens, where they have multiple first-round picks, might be willing to move, maybe not their own pick because it's going to be a high one, but the Florida Panther pick, for example, that they got in the Ben Chiarot trade. That's going to be in the second half, like the bottom half of the first round, that they'd be willing to move that in a similar type of trade. They can get another player that might be, comparable to like the Kirby Dach deal that they did in the offseason, for example, something along those lines. Well, I've seen reports and different fan base out there talking. It seems like some are convinced that a name they might be kind of looking at, it would be Alexander Holtz in New Jersey. Now, it's a name to watch, for example, because he's, it's been a few years now since he's been drafted. He's been put up some solid numbers in the American Hockey League, and this Devils team has kind of become pretty deep without him getting regular time in the forward group. So obviously, as that team gets more successful and deeper, it's harder to find a spot for him to be in a top 6 role. So could they consider trading him for a first-round pick or something, some other combination of assets? I guess it is possible. It does make sense that, like I said, like Kirby Dach was the number 3 overall pick. Holtz was obviously, fairly high in the first round. It makes sense that New Jersey might entertain this. Now, when the Devils were talking about, acquiring Timo Meier, a lot of people assumed that he might be a player involved in that, but he was not. They were able to retain him and not include him in that package. So we'll see what happens here, but it does make sense. I do understand why the Devils might trade him. I can see why Montreal would like him. He's got a really good shot, good release, has a real solid potential to be a good goal scorer if he can, get the right coaching and right opportunity in the NHL. So could be a name to watch. We'll have to keep our eyes on that as we get closer to the NHL draft. That's all your news and notes here for today. So let me know your thoughts on anything discussed down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.